What's new in your world? I know you've always got a lot going on, between crypto viewing, between your Facebook world, remote viewing. What's new and exciting with you?
Well, just a general UAP kind of disclosure thing that's going on for all of us, really. I find that mind blowing. And also, very soon, I will be bringing out a video that I've been working on for several months now. Actually, you'll like it in particular. It's a rather big video on remote viewing and the Roswell case, and it's
Oh,
going to
really?
yeah, it's going to incorporate mine and Dick's raw Roswell RV footage we did when we did the project for Courtney.
Yeah.
But I've also got an interview with Deborah Lynn Katz because she also tasked some of her students to look at Roswell independently.
Yeah.
And she's going to go through the data on that and the analysis of her data, my data, and data from another set. And the other set I've got is a 1997 Ingo Swann project where he tasked some of the best remote viewers way back then to look at Roswell as well. So it's essentially Roswell data from 1997 all the way to 2023 from three different taskers under three different circumstances. But the data, when you look at it from all that, all says the very same thing, that this is a real event. There were craft, they did crash, and there were non-human intelligences.
Wow. That's awesome. I love it because that's huge for corroboration. I think that gives it so much more credibility that there were multiple teams over multiple time spans with different intents of taskers, right? Because you can't have the same intents. I think that speaks volumes there to the data.
It should be very good. Yeah, very interesting. I might have to do it in two parts because it's coming out quite long at the moment. With Dick's RV on it, my RV.
Mm-hmm.
There's like an hour-long thing with Deborah, and then my Ingo stuff I need to add on the end of it. It might have to be in two parts. But yeah, it just goes to show the data is definitely out there, and RV can help in it. And with the Roswell thing, I think it's I'm going to be able to put this out at the right time, really, especially with all the disclosure stuff. And as we're going to discuss with the CIA being outed last week as being part of crash recovery operations with nine craft at least.
That's huge. Yeah, that corroborates so much. I'm excited. I'm excited to get into that. I'm excited about this project you're going to be releasing. We worked that with Hellfire too. We looked at the technology that came out of Roswell. That was a fun project to do also.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I really wanted to expand, I could include that as well. Maybe I should as part of that as well.
That's up to you. I mean, that's a robust amount of data, to add to your already full plate. But
it might increase it by another hour or so. But hey, why not? Then that would be 4 independent teams then as well.
Yeah.
And again, that data would just tally with everything else, which validates it for me because, when Ingo did it in 97 and he had people like Paul Smith and, some famous reviewers look at the Roswell back then, there wasn't the information available in 97 that there is today.
Right.
So it's not like he was being influenced by societal changes or anything like that.
Right.
So to validate his data, just the same as everyone else's, just adds credence to it to me that it's a real event and it all happened.
And then I think that brings more credibility to Corso's work too with what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then you just look at where tech is today, which is what inspired my project with Hellfire, is looking at how technology was seeded from that point on, possibly.
Yeah. Something I was discussing with the psychic guys last night when we were talking about this kind of stuff is, and we can discuss this later if you want, but what I'm finding very coincidental is where at these epochs of human history kind of thing, and we know that we got these massive societal changes happening at the same time. So we have, like, as through crypto viewing and future forecasting group, we've been looking at how the monetary system's changing with blockchain technology. Blockchain technology is everywhere now, and how that's going to change everything for humans. But at the same time as that, we're getting pretty close to understanding what consciousness is as well, and its role in everything. But on top of all this as well, we now have AI, and we're getting very close, it looks like, within years to having what they call AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, or a sentient living artificial intelligence that we create.
Yeah.
And on top of this, we got the UAP disclosure. We're very close to having physical aliens and craft and knowledge of that. All this coming together at the same time, I'm finding is very coincidental.
It's very odd. Yeah. And I think consciousness plays more of a role in that than we're aware of. I think that there's, it's just too perfect. The synchronistic timing of everything that, and I think everything is tied in a way that we don't see the connection yet. I don't think we're capable of seeing it.
Any one of those, I guess, has the capability to do some good to the world and to the human race, but also I think any one of those has some capability to do some serious damage to because all change is painful.
Yes. Yeah.
So
and it's scary. But you're right. I think it could go either way. And I think we are negating just how much power and influence we have. As AI is really, I think, a reflection of ourselves, our collective, our collective subconscious, unconscious, whatever, what we're putting out there. We're seeing ourselves in it.
Yeah, and it's moving. It's moving so fast. I'm not sure if you were up on all the weird stuff that were happening the last week with AI, especially with ChatGPT and OpenAI, with the CEO, and he was ousted by the board, and then the employees went against the board, and then they sacked the board, and then they rehired him, and then there was all this stuff that come out that said that something in the background was happening because he'd seen something that was a generational shift that blew him away, and there's all these rumors that they're working on this secret tech in AI called Q Star, and it's just like, well, what is going on here? We got some of the most serious and intelligent people on the planet that are the most funded, working on some very strange, technologies that are taking us in levels we just don't know where we're going.
Things we were laughed at. Things that they laughed at us for talking about, 10 years ago, right? Like, hey, this is a conspiracy theory. This is what's coming. And now we find that these big people are actually working on those things. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I just can't believe it's a coincidence that at the very same time that we're just about or to be on the cusp of having a sentient AI that we have a part in creating is the exact same time where we're seeing a release of yes, we for 70 years we have had craft from non-human intelligences, and it's so technological we don't know what to do with it, and we do have the bodies and all this kind of stuff at the same time. It's just too coincidental for me,
and yet nobody is batting an eye about it. It's not making headline. Like, that amazes me so much, is that people didn't care 20 years ago, and now, like, hey, we were right, this is really happening, and they're like, whatever. Like, there's just no reaction from it. It's just amazing to me. I mean, the implications, and maybe that's why, is because we look at that and we go, somebody say, okay, aliens are real, big deal, it's a big universe. We look at that and go, okay, aliens are real, that means the abductions are probably real. That means some of the OBE stuff's real. That means the psychic stuff is real. The tech is real. Like, there's so many things that we see, and how it is integrated into society, and what does that mean for humanity and our role in this whole thing? Like, there's all of these implications that ties into it.
Absolutely. I don't know if you've seen the article as well, but what I'm finding interesting that's coming out on UFO Twitter, and for those of you that don't know, if you use the hashtag UFO Twitter, there's huge amounts of UAP kind of information out there that you can kind of subscribe to. But what I'm finding as well over the last, I'd say probably 8 weeks, is that some of the very serious people writing articles, like Leslie Keane, she helped write the articles for the Wall Street Journal, on all that kind of stuff, the Tic Tac articles, very serious reporters. They're also talking about the connection between consciousness and UAPs. And they're talking about how even things like life after death and dimension stuff is all connected in this very same thing. So, they're also discussing and entertaining the thoughts now that, even, consciousness extends to after death. And the aliens, or not actually alien, I don't use the word aliens, non-human intelligences have a part and a connection in that part of our lives as well as everything else is going on. So I find it this shift where people are considering all this, quite a big shift, to be honest.
It's huge. You know, what's interesting? It's Whitley Strieber said that in his books years ago, that there's a connection to the dead, because he was having these experiences with the visitors, and he was also having experiences with people who had passed on coming to see him, you know? So I love that validation there.
Yeah. And that's, as we know, we've heard it many times, and it's been talked about, as I said, quite a lot recently, of the non-human intelligences when they have had interactions with people, saying that, you know, we in our human physical form are just containers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think about that a lot, and we've talked about that too. And I brought this up before on the show. I brought this up with you, but I think it's relevant again in Carla Turner's final book, Masquerade of Angels. Right, the one guy, the main focus of her story, he was taken out of his body and he was put in a black box, and then he said that his consciousness was then put into another cloned version of his body. When you think about that, what are you doing? You're transferring consciousness into a hard drive, really. But that didn't make sense in the late 90s when that came out, because we didn't understand. But now we go like, oh yeah, it's just like plug and play, you know, downloading an AI, put it on a flash drive, and then plug it into another hardware.
Yeah. And so I don't really know what to make of all that. I think that's even a step too far for me at this point. You know, like it mind blows me. I'm sat here reading it at times thinking, well, I haven't made that connection before, but holy hell, if that's if not only are we looking at, you know, creating life forms, like, you know, maybe they have a hand in creating AIs as well. Like I think they might do with their little grey robotic kind of beings. You know, that might, I think that's like AI impregnated kind of flesh, if in a way. But, you know, if they have a hand in doing that as well, but they also maybe have the technology to transfer, control, or manipulate consciousness and soul transfer, that's for me, that's even more mind-boggling, next level.
It hurts your head to think about, you know, and I was amazed when I was writing, you know, my one book, Food for the Archons. I read the Gnostic texts, and they talk about the aeons, which, you know, aeons is like this giant, I guess, consciousness, self-awareness, but it's also like a universe. And then they had this thing called aeonic copies. And I'm going to butcher exactly how it's worded, but it's basically an aeonic copy is a place where a copy of a soul will go to learn the truth. And then once it absorbs the truth that it needs, it merges back with the original consciousness. So it's like you're fragmenting part of your consciousness into another reality, into another universe or another computer program. You learn what you need to learn, and then it comes back. And I was like, man, maybe this is where, you know, when you get those downloads of information, maybe you're fragmenting and going out and having these experiences. Who knows?
Oh, I don't know if you've seen this, but I think Tunde, a week or so ago, posted a video on my remote viewing Facebook forum. And it would perfectly tie in with that. You probably like this. It's a guy that had a near-death experience. And in his near-death experience, he met multiple versions of himself doing multiple tasks.
Wow. That's amazing.
So that would validate that. Yeah, you should have a look at that one.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah, I've interviewed some people, and I've had some experiences where I've been myself, but somewhere out, like my world is a little bit different, you know. And it's one of those, like, that had a much different flavor than a dream. And I've, you know, years ago I interviewed people from the Monroe Institute who, you know, they say, you know, that we go in, we merge with different realities, a different consciousness, we're in different bodies, and all these things that they're capable of doing. It's fascinating to really think about the potential, you know, what that means, you know.
Where I don't think it's a coincidence that, you know, us people that are interested in this kind of stuff are living in this time right now with all this convergence of what's happening. I think with what's happening over the next 2 to 3 years could be monumental for understanding our part in the universe, really, I think.
Yeah, I'm wondering what impact that's going to have on the greater humanity, you know.
Well,
some
for
people
most
say,
people, they just want to live their everyday lives, don't they? You know, it's
yeah,
paying the bills, going out shopping. You know, you speak to most people on the street, and you're like, did you know, it's come out this week that the CIA have been recovering like craft for like 40 years, and they've recovered at least 9 UFOs,
yeah.
two of them fully working. Most people would be like, yeah, okay, right,
So what?
next. Yeah.
Like, do you know how big that is?
Yeah.
It's incredible, right?
I
All
know.
those years
I'm
of
sat here,
secrecy.
I'm sat here trying to go through this with my wife and saying, Deb, do you realize what this means? This validates everything I've been looking at since 1989. It
Yeah.
changes the whole of society. And she's like, yeah, when we go in shopping.
Yeah, no, it's like it just goes right over people's heads. I don't understand it. It
Yeah.
really, maybe that's just because it's interesting to us. But again, I think they don't understand the implications of it beyond, okay, they discovered something and, but it doesn't change the reality or validate the points that, I mean, it validates so many things for us where for so long we were either ridiculed or we had to be careful who we spoke to about it. I mean, there were so many things, where now it's just out there in the open. And you're like, I'm not crazy. Maybe I am, but
Absolutely.
I wasn't wrong in what I was saying here,
Yeah.
Now we have these different camps here, some people saying they're all friendly and benevolent and they're our space brothers, and other people saying they're hostile, and some people who have I think have passed on. I can't think of who it was now, but there are people out there who've been like, if you knew the real truth, it would absolutely terrify you.
Yeah, I'm slowly becoming one of those people, and I'll tell you why. I have the feeling. I mean, I've seen lots of stuff as well, and I can talk about some of the stuff that I've seen recently that's helped change my opinion on that. But I'm also, we can't just blame the American government and Intel and businesses from keeping this from us.
Right.
We are talking about a race of highly advanced, at least one race. There's probably more, but let's just refer to them as one race right now. There's at least one race of non-humans out there that are interacting with us and have done for thousands of years. And they have made it their goal in some circumstances to most probably abduct and experiment on humans. At the very least, they've been watching us from afar and doing stuff. And they have made it their outright goal to be detached from us in every way. And I just don't think that it's an ethical, spiritual way to behave with a young race of life forms to be this detached. It's very selfish on their part. I mean, I mean, maybe I'm looking at it in a small black and white way where it's not really, there's shades of gray. It's just, I don't think they, for the thousands of years that it looks like they've been interacting with us, it doesn't look like they've had anything to do with our spirituality or our best needs as their agenda. It seems like it's their agenda, and we're just here being watched or farmed.
I have mixed feelings on that. And throughout my life, I've gone both ways, and we did Strieber's implant, right? And I think we did get some data that it was more symbiotic, right? They were there to support us and help us grow. I think Coral had some good data on that. But just looking at my experiences alone in life, I have fragments of memories of encounters throughout my whole life. Some of them were absolutely horrifying. Some of them were scary, but then ended up being beneficial for me.
Yes.
Overall, the good and the bad forced me to question, and it forced me to grow, to try to understand. I wouldn't be a remote viewer if I didn't have those experiences starting as a child, if I didn't wake up terrified, if I, because I tried to fight it, and I went through everything, fight it, accept it, all of it.
But would it not be more beneficial for two races to converse about that, and for them to say, okay, we're doing this for your benefit, and this is why we're doing it for your benefit. We're here to help you, rather than leave it for us to believe that this is not real or it's nightmares, it's not happening?
I think it depends on, there's so many other dynamics around that. What causes spiritual growth? Because for me, it was an intrinsic motivation. I need to know, right? You know what that's like. I want to know. I need to and a lot of the people I talk to in this field, they just wake up when you're like, I want to know about this, right? And it forces you to grow, as opposed to, what if somebody showed up and we're like, hey, we're aliens or we're interdimensional beings? I don't know. Would it be lost there? Would it be the same? Would the growth be better, faster? Or I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I guess we're not going to be the last ones to gestate over this, but for me, it just doesn't feel like an equal beneficial relationship. It feels like they've purposely kept us in the dark, and they are purposely, and we got to be honest about this. If the abductee thing's happening, and it looks like it has to hundreds of thousands or more of people, people do feel like they're being abused, raped, traumatic damage, post-traumatic damage. That doesn't, it feels like in some ways, and I guess it would be almost like a thing of karma, although I don't believe in that. It's almost like how we
treat
cows and cattle.
It is. As above, so below. I think that's what we can expect a higher intelligence to do, unless as you evolve spiritually, you develop more of a compassion. But I mean, the whole premise of my work a few years back was showing like, hey, man, we're cattle. I've moved beyond that because I think that's a dangerous thread to get into, because then it puts you in such a state of fear. Yes. And you need to hold the pieces. Why are we cattle? It's because we have this power within us. We have this energy within us and this ability that's severely repressed. And that's what I try to hold focus on in light of this. I think the scary stuff happens, but I think if we lose sight of what we're really capable of, then we're stuck in that loop.
Yeah, because there is this, not theory, but there are these thoughts from people as well, from their experiences, that maybe there are more than one race interacting, and maybe some of them are beneficial towards us or trying to help us, but maybe there are some also trying to hinder us and keep us back and imprison us. So maybe it's not just as black as white as I'm thinking. Maybe there's a lot more going on that we just don't know about at this point. But either way, if there are more than one race out there, and I think there probably are more than one race interacting with us, still, I can't understand why for thousands of years they've allowed us to be subjugated by the people with the money and the power on this planet, rather than helping us by coming forward in some way.
And that's a Star Trek question right there, right? I mean, there's just so many unknowns. Why would, because then you look at some conspiracy threads and it's, well, they're actually empowering and using, like David Icke stuff, they're using these people in power as avatars to enact, the fear and the harm, which I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but there's so many different possibilities. And when you look at the ability to transfer consciousness, that's possible. That there's at least some kind of influence going on externally. I know there's a lot of talk, not a lot, but we've talked about remote influencing, but that's from us humans, with limited experience in trying to do it. And I guess there's been some limited success, right? Not much, but who knows what a more advanced mind or more experienced mind is capable of doing in terms of that.
It's I'm finding it a very cloudy subject, and the more that comes out, with the releases, the whistleblowers, all this kind of stuff, the more questions it's giving me, because I can't just blame the whole hiding this stuff from humans on humans. We have to be honest here. There's probably a more advanced race or more advanced races involved in this equation as well, and they have done nothing to help humans. Well, they've done nothing to help humans understand what's going on a public level either. And then I guess we have to ask is, it's great. It's great for me and you that all this disclosure is coming out, because we're starting to get some validation for our stuff.
Right.
But bearing in mind that we've also, if this is true and there is interaction with more than one, or at least one non-human intelligence, I'm also thinking to myself as well as a second question, how will they react to full world disclosure when they don't want full world disclosure because they've never had it before?
Right. That ties into some of the other work that I know you've worked on in looking at these, like some of the moon stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
how are they going to react to, bearing in mind that they haven't come out of the closet before, if they're forced to come out of the closet because of, UFO disclosure, what does that mean about what they're going to do, and how will they react to that? Bearing in mind they're highly advanced.
Yeah. And what kind of access do they have to our minds and our consciousness? Right. Yeah. And how will that impact us? I mean, I don't want to go super what if scary, but that could be a level of warfare.
But I think it's something we need to think about, isn't it? How, if we're it's like society, if you out someone for being different and, doing something that's probably kind of seen as nefarious, what does that person then? Where does that person go from that stage onwards?
I don't know. It could be retaliatory. It could be damage control. It could be, okay, we're here and all right, this happened. We didn't like it, but now we're going to deal with it.
Maybe another great flood is on the cards.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, these things, do they appear at these times of great change?
Yeah. There's so much we don't know, isn't there? But the whole thing is making me, as we get more disclosure, even though I've been in since 1989, that's when I first got involved in UFO research. I've been thinking to myself, I want to know, I want everyone to know. But now we're on the cusp of everyone knowing, or, I think we're pretty much proving it now. That's where my question is like, whoa, now we're here. What does this actually mean? Or where are we going with this? What's the conclusion?
Yeah. Where does this lead us? And is this in our best
interest? How do they
react?
If they're this intelligent and they want to be secret, what does outing them actually mean for society?
Or are they driving it?
Or are they driving it? Yes. It's
for some purpose.
There's so many questions, isn't there? And that, are they driving it? That's a great question that you just asked there. That may be a probability as well, because I think I've discussed this with you, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I recently got hold of a Pat Price, who was a famous remote viewer from the 70s, remote viewing session. And it's 37 pages of him deciding one day to sit down in 1972 and look at what the UFOs were doing, where they were coming from. And it's never been released in the public. But some of the details in these 37 plus pages detail about how, he's looking around and he talks about all these facilities, these kind of alien beings. He talks about more than one race of alien beings interacting with us. And this is in the 70s. He talks about, these bases in remote parts of the planet and stuff. And then, one of the documents talks about how they have also infiltrated every facet of human society. Social, economic, and financial, governmental, religious. And he actually details, each department and head of department and how they are infiltrated non-human intelligences. And so I don't know if he means that they're actually not human in this stage, or if there's something else. But so this in 1972, Pat Price is detailing about how some non-human intelligence is interacting with humans, and they've infiltrated every facet of society and they work in a way to create a problem and then give us a solution to keep us thinking and looking always in the different direction of where they are and what they're doing with us on this planet, kind of thing. So
go ahead,
just
keep going.
Mind-boggling that this kind of stuff, is out there. And he did this, what's that, 50 odd years ago now? Never been released in public, and now I'm seeing possible elements of all this in what's coming out in our everyday disclosure.
I've got a few thoughts on that. I'm thinking personally, I spoke with Angela Ford a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about just our creative processes and writing, how writing is similar to, it can be similar to remote viewing in terms of what's activated in your brain. And I was talking about how when I write, I do feel, although I'm not in session, not in state, it's coming from somewhere else. And I'm working on my sequel to The Hive, and it has a very similar theme to what you just said about how all these people in these high positions are influenced by another intelligence that then creates a setup in the world to make things the way that they are. I think that's highly possible.
Hopefully, because I'm working with a couple of other investigators on this. We haven't, we decided not to release it right now because we thought that some of the details in this document might upset the apple cart with what's going on with disclosure at the moment. So we held it back, and we decided that we convene in January to decide what we were going to do with it. And I got a feeling that we might start releasing it. But we might have to redact it because, as I said, Pat Price was a genius. He's well known as being the best at what he did. And he actually, he literally, in 1972, he names each department of every part of financial, social, we're talking governments, religion. So he actually names the people that he feels are infiltrated. So it would be quite easy to do a little bit of Google research and track and dox these people down. So we have to be careful about this kind of stuff. But it's interesting that this kind of data, was out there back then. It's been kept secret. Only 4 people had this document for 50 years.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, one of the people that had the document is one of the people that is one of the very highly placed people that's been involved in the disclosure program for the last 40 years as well.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So there's a lot of underneath the hood stuff that needs to research needs to be done to sort out what's happening here and why it's been kept secret. But it's interesting that this is coming out, and it's just some of the questions that me and you are, gestating with right now, really. Where does it going to go? I don't know, but it's bringing up. It's not just like disclosing, oh look, we got craft and there's aliens.
Right.
That's the start. Now it's opening us up to the bigger questions of holy shit, how does all this piece together? With us, consciousness, life after death, dimensions.
And
realities, AI.
What influence has this had on our lives? And specifically, is there unnecessary suffering because of this?
Yeah,
right. I mean, that's another piece to explore when you look at the abduction accounts.
Let's say next year, the American government goes, okay, UFOs are real. We got some. We've been working on them. Yeah, and here's some of the non-human intelligence as well. And here's. We interviewed one. He was alive a little bit in 1947. We had an hour's conversation with him, and this is what he said. And he said, and maybe he says, "Oh, we created you. We can move your souls as will. There is no God. We're your God. All this kind of stuff." If that comes out, it's like, what does that do to us? How does that change us from this stage onwards?
I think you'll have a lot of cognitive dissonance at first. Yeah. I think, but for people who are open to that, I mean, that takes, what it's like when you go through those dark nights of the soul. It's a paradigm shift, and maybe those of us who've been on the journey, it won't be as traumatic to hear it. It'll just be more validating. But I think that's a very real, that's why I try real hard to not have a goal of waking people up, because that can be so damaging to people. So what would that do? I don't know. It could be a very damning thing.
Maybe they're not, we have to be honest with it. There is a possibility that they don't have our best intentions at heart. We have to, because they've been silent so far, and we do know that abductions happen, and there are indicators that things a lot worse than abductions happen to humans and other animals as well. Maybe a bit like we do as part of a scientific kind of medical process of learning and stuff.
Right.
But if that, if we have to become self-aware as a society, that's a reality, and that can happen to any of us at any stage. That's a how. And I'm not trying to instill fear in people, but we have to think about these things.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I often do think about them just to balance it and play devil's advocate. I mean, what if it's the other way around? What if they are serving us somehow, right? And they realize how insane and warlike we can be, especially if we don't understand, and they actually do have vulnerabilities. And if we all knew about it, they know that then we'd be on the hunt for them, right? As humans, we'd be looking for where the bases are. We'd be going after them. We want to string them up and kill them and torture them and experiment on them. So maybe that's the other piece. Maybe that's their operational security. Like, hey, this is our function, because you do have reports that, right, they're here to serve humanity and help us and do all that stuff. And maybe it's everything under the sun. Maybe we have these benevolent helpers, and maybe we have these sadistic, torturous, maybe things that eat us too.
Yeah, I mean, and there are indicators of this in the Pat Price documents that I've seen in 72. And we've seen it in normal UFO literature as well, in a smattering of places. But as I said, going back to the Pat Price RV stuff, there is indicators that there were non-human intelligences, 2 different ones at least, that were warring themselves.
Right.
So there could be a good and bad. We always think of things as good and bad, don't we? It's very, there may be a 2-sided conflict or more,
beneficial and non-beneficial for us, right?
Yeah. So we might, I get, to be honest, from reading it and from doing all my psychic research stuff over the years and stuff, I kind of get the feeling that us as humans, or human souls kind of thing, where it feels like we're caught up a little bit in the middle of a larger universe of things that's going on very many different levels.
Yeah.
That we have to get used to.
What gets scary for me, and I really don't want to spread this fear, because I do believe we have a lot of power here, but what chance does a chicken have of winning against the chicken farmer, right? Not much at all, until he gets the advocates, the people from like PETA and stuff, to step in and say, hey, they need protection, they need help. So I wonder to be that weak.
I do follow the bear with me a sec.
Yeah.
I do follow the writings of Ingo Swann a little bit, in that in the 90s, 92, he wrote an article on, I think, the ET situation, where he's kind of saying, okay, we know that non-human intelligences, they do everything and they communicate through ESP. And he said back then, he said, look, it seems that where it's capable ESP wise, why aren't we using our capabilities, to try to ascend the same level as they are,
right?
Because he says, it feels like they're trying, them through the use of society and for the use of maybe technology, are trying to psychically castrate us and hold us back. Why aren't we trying to psychically band together and supersede that? And I think why some of them are very interested in us as human beings, and why they're doing the genetic stuff, hybridization, all that kind of stuff, I think it's because we do have something special within us as humans.
Yeah.
Whether that be the soul or this innate ability to do what we can do as remote viewers and, go anywhere in time and space. I think there is that there that's being held back by, and I think they probably do control parts of society that do hold that back. That's why we had the witch trials in the early parts of human history and stuff.
Right.
Try to remove intuition in the psychic parts of people from the human genome kind of thing.